Are you serious? Are you serious? Good morning, everybody. We have breaking news coming in. This just in. There is a serious development taking place in the Holy Land right now, especially in the West Bank, and has put this entire ceasefire in serious jeopardy. And the first big crisis, I think, of the Trump administration before you can even barely get in the door. I'm going to tell you what's going on right now because there's wrangling taking place in Congress over this. And there's also information we're getting from behind the scenes. Let me just say this real quick, real fast. Boostwithpaul.com. That's boostwithpaul.com. A cutting-edge 2024 study reveals that nearly half of all adults in the United States have high blood pressure. According to the CDC, only about 1 in 4 adults have their blood pressure under control. This is not good. And putting millions of people like you and me at risk of heart disease and stroke. It might seem like an uphill battle, but taking control of your heart health doesn't have to be complicated. Matter of fact, that's why I'm starting using, guys, and I've been telling everybody, you better protect yourself. You better do something. Manage your blood pressure with this Boost. Boostwithpaul.com. What a great way to do this. It will not only be your your blood pressure, but it will help you with your cholesterol. It will help you manage your weight. As you can see, I've lost more weight. It's triple action formula packed with clinically proven all natural ingredients like white mulberry leaf and cinnamon bark powder. This powerful formulation is designed to support balance of the blood sugar levels, healthy weight like nothing else. And there's thousands of people out there like you and me who need to take care of themselves. Guys, get this right now. Go to boostwithpaul.com and you can get 40% off. You should go today. Boostwithpaul.com. Boostwithpaul.com. You'll be glad that you did. I guarantee it. Well, let me just tell you that the webinar has now taken on a whole new level since President Trump announced last night the AI infrastructure project called Stargate. I mean, this is unbelievable. And Heidi said she was stunned when she heard President Trump announce this in the press conference yesterday live when he said, President Trump announcing an AI infrastructure project. Okay? And in other words, Trump said this would be a new cyber society. Well, what is the name of our webinar? Trump, AI, and the Cyber Society. There's no way Trump knew we were going to do a webinar on this Friday. And there's no way did I know that was going to get announced. Matter of fact, nobody knew that was going to be announced. Unbelievable. So God has really set up this webinar. He really has set up this webinar, even the very title itself and the events that are taking place. And so wait till Mike from around the world in the webinar helps explain this in detail, as well as John, the AI guy, and Daniel, the cyber guy. I mean, and Josh Peck. I mean, this is unbelievable, guys. This is unbelievable. And all the guys that's in this webinar. Stan Deyo already did talk, but he didn't know that was coming. This is incredible. So we want you to get your tickets. Go to my website at paulbegleyprophecy.com. All right. Let me tell you what's going on right now. This just in the West Bank. First of all, you need to know that President Trump's pick to be the next UN ambassador, Elsie Stefanik, is being put under some pressure for her belief that the West Bank, or what's known as Judea and Samaria, she believes that is that is biblical territory or a biblical land that God gave the Jews. She believes that. Spoiler alert, so do I, and should be everybody in ministry and everyone who's a Christian and everyone that's a Jew knows this. It's in your Bible. But the point is, the Democrats who are questioning her, they don't want her to have that view. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But first of all, I've got to get to the real problem. The real problem right now is 10 Palestinians Palestinians have died as while this ceasefire is going on in Gaza, and the slow drip, drip, drip release of these hostages. This is tormenting torture on the families, and it's stringing along this whole Gaza situation. While that's happening, Israel says, okay, fine. We're still fighting the Houthis in Yemen. We're still fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon, but we're going now on in to take on those radical jihadis that are in the West Bank or in Judea and Samaria with an operation, military operation. They went in and they launched it. 10 Palestinians are dead. 40 others are injured as Israeli forces have launched a major operation in Jannah, which is in Judea, in the Palestinian health minister saying over in the West Bank. Now, Palestinian media reported that on yesterday that there was several airstrikes by Israeli drones and aircraft as a very large number of troops, Israeli troops, entered the city of Jannah and went into the refugee camps, backed by drones, helicopters, and armored bulldozers, and a large troops operation went in to sniff out to really hunt down these terrorists that are in this part of the nation. Israel's prime minister said they launched this extensive and significant operation to defeat terrorism in Jannah, long seen as the stronghold of the Palestinian armed groups and terrorists. It comes 3 days after the start of the ceasefire over in Gaza. Now, this is a different area. In this area, Israel's been getting strikes and been hit, and there's different attacks been coming on the Israeli citizens. Just last week, 3 Israeli citizens shot dead standing on the corner. I mean, that kind of stuff. And so, even though the ceasefire started 3 days ago in Gaza, Israel is now going in after the terrorists and those who have been threatening the violence and those who have been causing violence in the West Bank. The suspected Israeli settlers also lived there as well in that area, and some of them got involved. Now, Jannah's governor is saying that this morning what happened is an invasion of our camp, he said, coming in with these Apache helicopters in the sky. He goes, in Israeli military vehicles everywhere. But the Palestinian security personnel reportedly withdrew from some of their positions around Jannah refugee camp before the Israeli forces moved in. So they got out of the way. These were supposed to be security people, but really they're part of the radical jihadists. The official Palestinian news agency, the Wafa, later has said that local sources are saying that the Israeli forces were completely besieging the entire Jannah camp and that armored bulldozers had dug up several streets. The director of Jannah's government also said that there were 3 doctors and 2 nurses that were among those that could have been wounded in the gunfire. That's not confirmed. That is an unconfirmed report. We'll look into that. And so there's a surge in injuries. Also, there was snipers that were shooting at the Israeli soldiers, and it just got real ugly over there. And this is the beginning of this operation to dig out the terrorists who have been encamped there. Now, they're mostly Islamic jihadists. They're also Palestinian terrorists. They may not use the term Hamas, but they work closely with Hamas. The Palestinian Health Ministry is saying that 10 people are dead and 40 were wounded in the initial fighting and in the siege of the Jannah camp there in the West Bank. Now, Israeli military and Shin Bet security services are saying that, yes, we hit and killed 10 terrorists. That is true. And wounded several others. Additionally, aerial strikes on terror infrastructure sites were conducted and numerous explosions. planted on the routes by terrorists were also dismantled, because you have to understand that what they do is they go out and they plant IEDs. They set up bombs for the Jews, if the Jews are driving by in their cars, to blow them up. And this is part of the terrorism that they've been doing. So even though Israel's been fighting this main war in Gaza, and they've been fighting the war with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and they've been fighting the war against the Houthi rebels in Yemen, and they had to take on 500 rockets fired at them by Iran, they've got an absolute a nest of terrorists over in the West Bank that they know they got to take care of. They got to take care of it. So they figure, well, we're in a ceasefire over here in Gaza, so let's go over here and take care of this now while we can, and while the ceasefire is going through. Now, the question is, will the ceasefire hold while Israel continues this operation in the West Bank? Plus, Israel's had to go in and take over the Golan Heights, expanding the buffer zone, taking part of Syria to help set up an active border protection along the border with Syria. So, they've been doing that, and that has included a lot of attacks, a lot of aerial strikes on Iranian and Syrian and this new radical group that took over Syria, HTS. These guys, they had to do something to protect Israel from the border over in Syria. And I've been to the border at Syria and stood up on some over in the Golan Heights 2 or 3 different times. I think 3, maybe 4, but I know I've been there many times and stood up there and looked out across into Syria and realized just how close this is. And no wonder Israel had to take a little bit more of that and set up a broader perimeter and expand that buffer zone for protection for the Israeli citizens. It's understandable. And if you were to go there and see that, you would understand. Israel says it's a temporary thing to do until there's some kind of security and peace in the region. The prime minister of the West Bank, though, Mohammed Mustafa, of the Palestinian Authority, he's condemning this military operation raid by the Israelis, saying it's the latest in a series of aggressive Israeli measures against Palestinians in the West Bank. Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad both called on the Palestinians in the West Bank to escalate the attacks against Israeli forces in response to the Jannah operation. There have been a number of previous Israeli military operations in Jannah, and recently the Palestinian Authority security forces have carried out a controversial weeks-long operation against those armed militant groups that are embedded there in the West Bank, and that includes Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists that are trying to take control of the West Bank. And Israel cannot let these guys take full control of the West Bank like they did with Gaza. There has been a spike in violence, of course, in the West Bank ever since Israel was attacked by Hamas on that fateful day of October 7th, 2023. Okay? And which is what caused the war to happen in Gaza in the first place. And then hundreds of Palestinians have been killed as Israeli forces have intensified the raids, saying that they are trying to stem the deadly Palestinian attacks on the Israelis living in the West Bank also. You have to understand, the West Bank is not just, it's not just Palestinians that live there, but 1 million Jews live there in the West Bank. It is Judea and Samaria. Okay? This is the Bible land. This is the Holy Land. Okay? And so I think that it's very important that we explain that, because I know most people don't know that. They think it's just Israel running over and attacking people in the West Bank. No, it's Israel trying to root out the terrorists that live among the Palestinian people who kill innocent Jews over in the West Bank all the time. And Israel is finally saying enough is enough. Now, I'm going to show you what it says in the Bible about Judea and Samaria in just a moment. But first, let me go back to the United States, because Elsie Stefanik is already under the gun, and she hasn't even been approved yet. But this Middle East crisis, the U.S. has picked Elsie Stefanik, President Donald Trump nominated her to be the next UN ambassador. She's expressed support for Israel's claims of a biblical rights to the West Bank, to the entire West Bank. She says it's in the Bible. And this has caused a tense confirmation in exchange in the hearing. Maryland Senator Chris Van Holden confronted Stefanik about her agreement of a position that aligns her with the Israeli far right, he said, including the Israeli Prime Minister Shmulch and the former National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, derived from a private conversation she had with him in his office before the hearing. He said, quote, "You told me that, yes, you share this view, that it is biblical land of Israel." Van Holden said during the question, "Is that your view today?" She said yes. The hearing remains heavily focused on the United Nations stance on Israel, and with this particular exchange, a clear example on how Stefanik's stance might affect U.S. diplomatic efforts during the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, particularly regarding Palestinian self-determination and territorial disputes. Still, Senator Van Holden warned that such positions that Stefanik has could hamper the peace negotiations. And he said it's going to be very difficult to achieve peace if you continue to hold the view that you just expressed. She said it's going to be difficult to have peace no matter what. And you certainly can't let terrorists torment the citizens of Israel. Now, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called on Israel's security forces to exercise maximum restraint after a major Israeli military operation launched in the West Bank city of Jenin. The United Nations chief remains deeply concerned about the violence. He urges security forces to exercise maximum restraint and use lethal force only when it is strictly avoidable to protect life. Now, Israel's saying, what do you think we've been doing? We're trying systematically, very carefully, to go in and take care of the terrorists without injuring any civilians. But it's very difficult because the terrorists embed themselves among the population. As a matter of fact, some of the population is part of the terrorist group, okay, in plain clothes. So, and they assist guys in the setting up the bombs, and they allow weapons to be stored in their homes, and there's all kinds of stuff that goes on, of course. So President Trump's pick for the United Nations ambassador, New York Congresswoman Elsie Stefanik, she expressed support for Israel's claims of the biblical rights to the entire West Bank. Stefanik's comments made during a very tense confirmation hearing exchange show just how strong and how her stance might affect U.S. diplomatic efforts during the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, particularly regarding the Palestinian self-determination that they want to have a two-state solution. Now, we even heard from the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. He held a call with Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu. He said number 10, which is their White House. Starmer told Netanyahu that the peace process in the Middle East should pave the way for a viable and sovereign Palestinian state or a two-state solution. An Israeli readout of the call said that Starmer faced pressure from Netanyahu over frozen arms sales to Israel. You need to know that. UK says they're an ally of Israel, but they're holding back. They're not shipping the military arms and weaponry to Israel. They've froze them right now. And they're on the phone telling Israel, you need to back off because you're going to cause it to where there'll never be a Palestinian state. You have to stop, basically. So the West should seize the opportunity to target Iran-backed Houthi leadership in Yemen while this is going on, while the Iranian government has been weakened. That's according to the vice president of the UN-backed government in Aden. He said that. He said, look, U.S. should go ahead and take advantage of this moment and wipe out the Houthis over in Yemen. And he's called on the U.S. to handle it. Also, He said, Iran's reverses in Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza has left the country massively weakened in Iran. He said, now's the time to counter the Houthis and push them back into their position. So, but yet we're dealing with a UN that doesn't want to stand with Israel, but wants to hinder the process of eliminating the terrorists. So what we have here is justification. You know, once again, we're having this justification for violence by the United Nations, basically. And at this point, we have the UK's Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, siding basically with the Palestinians as he starts withholding military arms that's needed to Israel. So you can see what's going on here. The same old game is being played. Now, what does the Bible say about the West Bank? Is Elsie Stefanik, is she correct in her biblical view of the West Bank? She is. In the Old Testament, God had already made a covenant with Abraham that wherever the sole of his foot touches would become the Holy Land, of which is a lot bigger than the nation of Israel is right now. It includes a lot more property, including parts of Egypt and Saudi Arabia, and especially parts of all of Lebanon, basically, and large parts of Syria, parts of Iraq, and even some of Iran. If you put the whole Levant together, that's what God said. Now, Jesus in Matthew 24 knew we would come to this point in the last days. I want to read what Jesus said. Jesus basically says this, look, in the end times, bottom line is this: there's going to be major conflict, and that Jews are going to be very vulnerable in Judea and Samaria, or Jews living in the West Bank. And like I said, there's 1 million Jews that live there right now. So Jesus said these words this is what's going to happen. Listen to this very closely. You're going to get to the abomination of desolation, and then you're going to see where Jews are really going to be in trouble. He was asked the question about, can you tell us a sign of thy coming, the end of the world? Jesus said in Matthew 24, verse 4, Jesus answered, said, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. Now ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places, or different places, and all of these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. So he's talking to the Christians right there, believers, because many will be arrested and afflicted and thrown into prison and even killed for the name of Jesus. So that's the Christians. Now, then he says, then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. This is in the church. This is among Christians. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. So Jesus is saying the West Bank right here. I'm going to take you now to verse 16. So there's going to be this, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoever reads it, let him understand. And here's what it says in verse 16. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains, and let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. Woe to them that are with child and them that give suck in those days, but pray that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. And except those days be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. So you have Jesus talks about the Christians are going to be under the gun, and then the Jews living specifically in Judea will be, which is the West Bank. Guys, continue to pray. We're living in the end times. We really are. We're going to stay on top of this. Get your tickets for the webinar. It is Friday. We're just 48 hours away, just about 6 p.m. Friday. This webinar begins. Trump, AI, and the Cyber Society. Don't miss this one.